record. All right, everyone, once again, a warm welcome to episode 4 of the Inclusion Conversation. I'm really excited to be here with you today. So for those who don't know me, my name is Solène. I'm the founder of Be Beyond Borders and the host of the Inclusion Conversation. I started this as a monthly talk show because I wanted to break down borders and bring the world closer together, one conversation at a time. I'm convinced that stories have the power to connect us, to allow us to empathize with each other and to get to know each other better. And so that's why I put this little series together, and we gather on a monthly basis and talk about different topics. And today we're talking about deaf awareness with Simon, and I'm so excited for you to be hearing from him. It's going to be really an amazing conversation, as always, I'm sure. Just a reminder in terms of the flow of the next hour. We're so lucky we have an hour together. If you are watching the recording, though, it's half an hour because you'll have to join the next time to get the full experience. So the first 20 minutes, we are going to hear from Simon. I'm going to ask him a few questions. Then there are 10 minutes where if you have any questions, please pop them in the chat and we'll pick those up. And actually, I would invite you to have a think about a question already now. You know, before we enter into the topic, before you joined, maybe you thought, I'd love to know about this. So if you have one, pop it in the chat. I'd love to see that and to integrate it into the conversation. And then half an hour in, we'll stop the recording and we'll have a genuine chat conversation off the record. If you have any stories that you want to share about your experience with this topic, any questions that you might have not dared asking before that you want to ask, this will be the moment to do that. So just a brief reminder, as I said before, this is recorded for the first half. Cameras on if you're comfortable, that's amazing. If not, that's okay. We've got the subtitles going at the bottom of your screen. They're not always amazing with my accent, so I do apologize, but hopefully they give you a good idea of what we are discussing. We have the chat functionality. If you have any questions, any comments, please pop them into the chat. And if you'd like to introduce yourself to everyone as well, you can do that in the chat. It'd be amazing. In terms of mindset, this is all about having an open mind, learning from each other, and really creating that safe space where we can ask any question, even the uncomfortable ones. There are no breaks. If you need a break, don't raise your hand, just go for a break. That's all good. And so without further ado, I would like to welcome Simon to this episode, and we're gonna now hear from him. So Simon, can you first, well, actually, what am I doing? See, I forgot about
we're doing the first exercise.
Exactly. We're going to shift things up. We like to start things differently, as you know. And so today we're going to start with a little exercise that Simon is going to take us through. So over to you.
Yeah, so hi, everyone. I hope you'll indulge me. I hope you can hear me at the moment to start with. But this is an exercise that I do at the end of every deaf awareness session that I normally do. What I'm going to do is I am going to read out some statements about myself, okay? But I'm going to be on mute. So you're going to practice your lip reading skills. I can see Philip, hopefully he's not driving, so hopefully he's not going to be looking too much at me. But everyone else, if you're in the comfort of your own home. So I'm going to read out some statements and I'll go on mute and I'll give you a couple of goes. So don't worry, and I'll tell you when I'm going to go on mute and say it. Just watch my lips, hopefully you can see me, and have a go, okay? So I'm just going to pull these statements over here so I can read them. Okay, and I'm going to go on mute and I'm going to read the first statement now, okay? Okay, so I'm going to do that one again. I can see a few shakes of the head, but don't worry, have another go. Did anyone get any of that? Anyone want to have a go? Any thoughts?
I don't think I should go, but I read that pretty well. So. I'm deaf myself, so I'll stay out of this.
Okay. Well, what I said then was, or do you want to say, Rachel, do you want to say what I said? Yeah, anyone?
Unbelievable football fan, and then the second bit was about something about food prices.
Well, not quite. You got football fans. So what I actually said was, I'm a big Liverpool football fan, so don't ask me about supporting Manchester United. And the reason I use that one is because a lot of people have pick up football and then Manchester, and I don't know whether they think United or they heard Manchester United. So a lot of people say, oh, you're a Manchester United football fan. And the reason I say that is that if you're deaf, you pick up the wrong context of what's said, you can get the completely wrong end of the stick. So I'm not a Manchester United fan, I'm a Liverpool fan, so don't ask me about supporting Manchester United. Okay, so that's that one.
So you were very happy yesterday evening.
Yes, and hopefully in a couple of weeks' time I'll be even happier. But, unless Manchester City win. So next one. Okay, and these are just random things about myself. Okay, next one. Okay, so I'm going to do that one again. Any idea? You can put it in the chat or you can just shout out.
I have the excuse that English is not my mother tongue, so dare I say it's a bit
That's fine.
So that's
fine.
I have no idea.
That's not a problem. No, thank you for having a go. So what I actually said was, I have a master's degree in sports psychology. Okay, all right. I'll do two more and then we'll move on. Right, the next one. Okay, I'll do that one again. Did anyone get any of that? Solène, did you get any of that?
I think I got favorite and life.
Yes, favorite and life. I said a little bit more than that, but you got that.
Yeah,
Well
I think
done.
you said a lot more than that. Anyone else got any words that we can kind of string together?
It's just the first two words, Simon. I have, maybe.
Almost. What I said was, I love all music from pop, R&B and classical. My favorite period is probably the 80s. I can't sing to save my life. So that's what I actually said. All right.
Okay, so we'll end on a song, note to self.
And what, bearing in mind, I normally do this at the end of I'll give you a bit of a clue. Well, I don't know whether there's a clue or not, but I normally do this at the end of the presentation, but I'm going to change it now. Okay, so we're going to go on mute, and I'll say this again. This is the last one we'll do. I'll do that one again. Anyone catch any of that? Probably not.
You're enjoying your cup.
No, the reason I do that is because at the end of the presentation that I normally do is because a lot of people talk about masks and masks coming off. Even though masks are coming off, people still play with their beards, put their hands in front of their mouth, and have things like this. You carry on talking, even though you've got a barrier in front of you. So I just did that, and all I said was, I thoroughly enjoyed presenting, and I hope you found this useful. And that was it. So that was the end of that little exercise. But hopefully, it's given you a bit of an insight into the challenges of somebody who has to lip read. Now, I've been lip reading since I was born, but some people become deaf as they go, they get older, they get cell breakdown, and they start to learn to lip read just because they need to try and understand what's being said, and it's hard for them. So that is all I wanted to do on that exercise. So thank you for having a go. Okay. And that's that.
Amazing. Thank you, Simon. And I've been on a few of your trainings and I still struggle.
Still do get it.
So I definitely need a lot more practice. And yeah, I'm sure everyone would have, found this really eye-opening, because
Yeah.
I certainly did, especially the first time that we met. So, but yeah, thank you. And so tell us now a little bit more. I mean, obviously we had those 4 statements, but a little bit more about you.
Yeah, sure. So, well, keeping it to the deaf angle, I was born deaf. I was diagnosed at a preschool hearing test. So there was a lady with a table with a whole load of objects and cups and books and balls and stuff. The lady sat opposite and she put her hand in front of her mouth and she said, "Pick up the ball, pick up the cup." And I turned around to my mum. I was maybe not quite 5. And I turned around to my mum and I said, "How does she expect me to hear if she's got a hand in front of her mouth?" And my mum always knew there was something not quite right, but all the professionals in the room were like, "Whoa." Yeah, obviously I've got hearing. And then from then on, I had hearing tests, and every 6 months you get put into a little booth and they pretend that you're an RAF pilot and you have to press the button every time you hear the noise. And so I've gone through school. And in case anyone, I mean, I do this on my talks normally, but in case anyone thinks I'm a charlatan and I'm making it all up, then I actually have my hearing aids. I'm not wearing them at the moment because I've got these in. I've actually got 2 of these. And Solen met my puppy earlier, but the puppy ate the other mold, so I'm only got 1 at the moment. So it's the other one I need to go back to the audiology to get the mold fitted. And in fact, the other one's got tooth marks in it as well, because he had to go at the whole thing. Thankfully, he didn't eat the battery, which would have not been good at all. So yeah, so I've been born. I was born deaf. I struggled with low-level bullying through school. My dad worked for, the Andrex puppy adverts, the Andrex tissues. Well, he worked for the company that made those. So I was born in Tunbridge Wells in the southeast, but we lived in Scotland, which is where I started school, which is where I had my hearing test. But been all over. And so I was the kid wearing these lovely NHS behind the ear hearing aids, coming in on a Tuesday at 10 o'clock in the morning, being greeted by the headmaster, walking into a classroom of people I didn't know. Everyone's going, "Oh, look at him, he's got this weird thing behind his ears." So there was low-level bullying as I went through school. I went to university. I felt I had to work harder than everyone else because I couldn't hear what was being said. I had 120 people in my lecture theatre when I was trying to work. And because I have to lip read, I would concentrate on the lecture and then I'd write down the comments and then I'd miss what the lecturer said next. So my notes were pretty rubbish, but we managed to get a note taker who wrote all of my notes for me. So I could sit there and observe. And then at the end, I'd get, instead of 3 lines, I'd have like 20 pages of notes. And I used to type up the notes, read the notes, type them up. And I actually made quite a lot of money at university because I sold my notes to my fellow students as we got closer to exams. So, no, I wasn't here, and I'd sold my notes to them. So I got through that. I got a good job in the city for one of the big 4 management consultancies. And one time I was in Glasgow on a project, and we were in this big sort of room. It's like a boardroom style, 20, 25 people, mixture of the consultants and the staff. They gave me an action. I was a team lead. I wrote it down. A couple of days later, the program director took me to one side and he said, "Oh, you've messed up." I said, "What do you mean?" And he says, "You didn't do the action that was requested in that meeting." I said, "Yes, I did." And I've got on my notes. He said, "That's not what was said." So I misheard the action. And I said, "Oh, what do I do? I'm sorry, what do we do to correct it?" And he said, "I want you back in London tomorrow morning. I want you off the project." And so I got thrown off the project, and that was in 2001. And the reason I say that is because, it sticks with you when you have an experience like that. You can have a positive or a negative experience. And that's basically what happened with me. So I remembered that. And so I use that in my deaf awareness talks to explain how important it is to think about the impact of what you say. It doesn't have to be a deaf person, it could be another hidden disability, it could be a physical disability, but they remember how they felt, and it has impacted me. I say that I've had imposter syndrome since. I've had it, you know, it's quite trendy to have imposter syndrome these days, but I had it many years before that. And it shaped my career. I maybe not applied for certain roles or not done certain things. And it stems at that particular moment in time. So that's a kind of a potted history of me. Do you want me to talk, Selene, is that enough in terms of a bit of background, do you think?
Yeah, that's perfect. And obviously that was 2001, as you said.
Yeah.
So there's been a long time since then. And I know that recently you started the We Are Deaf Awareness campaign. So I was hoping you can cover a little bit about what made you decide, you know, kind of, it seems almost all of the sudden, but we will hear a bit more about, I guess, the motivations for you behind starting the campaign.
Yeah, so despite all of the things that I said about, you know, a bit of low-level bullying, been thrown off a project, I've got on with life. I've not really had, I've never been like a deaf advocate. I kind of just got on with life, you know, brushed myself off and carried on. But the pandemic hit, and that was, for me, it stopped me in my tracks. I really struggled. I think lots of people didn't realize that by wearing a mask, it would have an impact for people who are deaf, and it does, because a lot of us lip read. And so you remember we launched actually on the 12th, my campaign launched on the 12th of April, which was the day when businesses opened up. Prior to that, we had those essential services. We had doctors, supermarkets, opticians, pharmacists. And in every single one of those instances, across all of the essential services, I had severe problems communicating with them. And the straw that broke the camel's back was an optician visit. I went to the opticians, and the lady was wearing a mask and she was wearing a face shield. And I must have said about 12 times, "I'm really sorry, I'm deaf, I have to lip read, I can't hear what you're saying." And she just carried on. She might have raised her voice, I don't know, but it didn't make any difference. And my frustration level was just building and building throughout the consultation. And at the very end of the consultation, she said, "Floaters, come back to the opticians." Couldn't hear what she was saying. She said, "Go straight to A&E." And at that point, I was like, "What?" And so by then I was so kind of frustrated and had pent up anger. I said, "Look, my wife's outside, will you please tell her?" So we chose some glasses. She spoke to my wife, and then we left the opticians, went home, and I was in the car, and I said to Jenny, my wife, "What did the optician say?" And she said, "Oh, if you have a detached retina." Like now I'm like, well, I've got all these questions, you know, I'm now unable to continue. So what is a detached retina? What are the symptoms? What can I do to stop it from happening? What, you know, all these questions. And I was unable to have that conversation. So I went back 2 weeks later, to cut a long story short, went back 2 weeks later to pick up my glasses. My wife couldn't come with me. She works for the NHS and she was on call. So she's a cardiac matron. So she was on call, couldn't come with me. I said, what can I do to stop this from happening? And what I did was I got my mask. I haven't got it with me, unfortunately, but I got my mask. And I wrote deaf and lip read on it. And I walked into the store, and the lady behind the counter immediately took a step back, pulled the mask down without me saying anything, and said, "How can I help?" And that, for the first time ever, somebody actually recognized and wanted to help me for being deaf and clearly struggling. And we had a conversation about it, and it started a series of articles on LinkedIn. I did a training course for 70 people on Zoom, and it spawned into this campaign called We Support Deaf Awareness. And it's basically designed to help organizations and their staff to better be able to communicate with the deaf and the hard of hearing. So if it's in a shop window, for example, or in a doctor's surgery, or in an office, or in a reception area, if I see this, then as a deaf person, I don't walk around going, hey, I'm deaf, you know? So if I see this, I'm quite quiet. If I see this, and if I start to struggle because someone's wearing a mask or someone's turning the other way and I can't hear what they're saying, then I know, because I've got this in their window, that the staff have been trained. So I can kind of go, I'm deaf. I notice you've got this in your window. And then hopefully some of their training will kick in and they'll have a better understanding of how to communicate. And yeah, and that was, so we launched on the 12th of April last year in the Oracle Centre in Reading. All 100 retailers were on board. We've recently, in Basingstoke, where I currently live, in Festival Place, 78 of the retailers have adopted it. The whole of the stores are adopting it, but 78 have done so far. I think there's about 100. And we're up to now 210,000 employees who have access to the training. We've got 25 NHS trusts around the country, from the Isle of Wight, Dorset University Hospital, Dorset, West London, Newcastle upon Tyne, Manchester University NHS Trust, Oxford University NHS Trust. So those. We've got PepsiCo, Diageo, or business unit within Diageo.
You need to get Liverpool Football Club next.
Yeah, yes, that would be great.
That should be.
Yeah, that's what. In
that
fact, I
should
do
be
know
on your
somebody.
target.
I do know somebody in the operations, and I think I need to get back in touch with them, see if they'll join. And we've got the Samaritans have joined. All 20,000 volunteers have access to the training. Dementia support. We've got trade unions, so we've got Unison. Our first ever university, University of Kent, has signed up a couple of weeks ago, as did our first organisation in New Zealand. So we're slowly but surely growing, and it's been a wild ride. And I met Solène about a year ago, I think it was, something about that. And I did a presentation at a company so I've done about 70 presentations at organizations mainly around the UK. I did one for Jersey today. They're going to try and get me into the Jersey government, which sounds quite exciting. So we'll see how that goes. But yeah, it's been a really interesting journey. People have been very receptive to it, and they found the training really, really helpful. So brilliant.
Yeah, that's amazing. I think that's obviously going to impact many, many lives in the future. So yeah, really inspiring. And during your training, I remember that you touched on this point, and I think it's really important, because I think a lot of us, when we come to this topic, I would say a majority ignorant as to, you know, the differences and the nuances. We think that if you're deaf, then you need the sign language, right, component. So can you tell us a bit more about the differences in hearing abilities and what that means for different people? Yeah,
sure. So it's measured in decibel hearing loss. So if somebody's deaf, it's not really a percentage. So someone could be completely deaf and they'll be 100% deaf, but it's done on decibel hearing loss. So if you have an 80 decibel loss or more, then you're considered to be profoundly deaf. And if you're profoundly deaf, many people sign. So this is a BSL for signing. They may not speak English. That might be their first language is signing, or BSL. Some of them do speak. Sometimes you can tell with the way that they speak, the speech is impacted because they're profoundly deaf. I have a severe hearing impairment. I have about 75 decibel hearing loss. It's up on the upper scale of severe, all the way down to mild hearing loss. So if you've got mild hearing loss, then it's about 20 to 40 decibels loss. And if you've mild, then you can have one-to-one conversations, but background noise might get in the way, all the way up to severe. The majority of people should at least have or wear a hearing aid, but some people don't. I mean, I know people who are become deaf over as they get older, and I'm not saying it's vanity, but they just feel they don't want to wear one. I don't have much hair. Some people get the benefit of having more hair that they can hide it, and you never know. And you can get some hearing aids which are really, really small, pop into your ear, and to be honest, you wouldn't know. But I've been wearing this, well, not this same one, but I've been wearing these for 40. It'll be in September, 49 years. I'll be around 49 years. I've had it for quite a long time, and I'm used to it. I had no choice. My parents said you're going to wear it, but so yeah, it is, and a lot of people, and I think it's amazing what's been happening with the Strictly Come Dancing and Rose, and how she's really opened the population's eyes up to BSL and deafness, but not everybody who is deaf science. And I often, when I get asked if I could do a deaf awareness session, a lot of people say, the first thing they say is, do you need a BSL interpreter? And I said, well, apart from that, and thank you, and I know the alphabet, and I am learning actually, well, I've signed up for a course, but I'm not, I think BSL was amazing. But because I went to a mainstream school, I didn't go to a deaf school when I was younger. I was going to at one point, but we decided it wasn't appropriate. But I haven't had that. I'm not part of that culture where signing. My parents are not deaf, and if anyone wants to see a really good movie, Coda, which is available on Apple TV, is really a really great movie. I saw that well, several weeks ago, just when it won the Oscar. It's a great insight to what it's like. But I'm the only one who's deaf in my family, so that in itself has brought challenges. And because of my speech, I think the final thing, my speech is pretty good. If you are profoundly deaf, the speech might not be as great. You're reminded that that person's got a hearing impairment. My speech is pretty good. So the thing that I say a lot in this household of mine is I can't lip read round corners. So my kids or my wife will call me from another room, take the dog out, do this, that, and the other. And I just I can't hear what they're saying. So I can't lip read round corners is something I say quite a bit. So, but yeah, and it's just really good. It's great that deaf awareness that's the one thing I think from the pandemic. That's the one good thing I feel, is that it's elevated the need to think about inclusion, diversity, and I think people are a lot more kinder than they were before the pandemic generally as a society. What I hope is that, and that's one of the reasons why I did my thing with the mug, I want people to remember that just when the masks go, it doesn't mean to say that the deaf have been saved. We've needed and have had deaf awareness for decades. We need to continue that, and that's what I'm hoping my campaign will carry on doing.
That's amazing. Thank you. And for those joining us from different countries, Strictly Come Dancing is a dancing show. And there was a candidate, Rose, who is deaf, and she did a piece of dancing where the music went completely off, and it was absolutely moving. Really brought, I think, everyone watching to tears. So if you have a spare moment and you haven't seen it, just type in Strictly Come Dancing Rose routine, and I'm sure it will come up, and have a watch of it. And then the other thing was the movie Coda that won the Oscar is actually based off or somehow related, I don't know, to a French movie called La Famille Bélier. So if we have, and I know we do have some French people joining, La Famille Bélier is also a really great movie on pretty much the same plot.
When we discussed it, it was like, oh, I've heard of this movie
hang on a
before.
minute, that's the same script. So I don't know how they're working this out amongst themselves. But yes, really great movie to watch. We're getting really close to the end of this more formal part. So I'll ask you one final question, and then we'll stop the recording.
Sure.
Can you leave the ones watching leave them with any tips and tricks on how to best interact with people with hearing impairments?
Yeah, sure. So there's a couple of things you can do. I think the first thing is if you know that someone has a hearing impairment, someone says that they're deaf, then I think the first thing is to ask them, how can I best communicate with you? So empower that individual to say, Do you sign? Have you got a piece of paper and I'll write my question down? I can lip read, so as long as we're socially distancing or whatever it is, but really give them the opportunity to tell you how they would like to communicate. So that's the first thing. How can I best communicate with you? The other thing in terms of video calls or when you're talking to somebody face to face, try and keep your face on. I call it face on. That way, if they do lip read and you don't know whether they do, then they're more likely to hear you. If you turn away and start talking like that or moving, then it's difficult. So try and keep your face on. If you have to move away, for example, you need to use a computer, you're talking to somebody, tell them what you're going to do. So say, well, I just need to use a computer, stay there, I'll be back in a second. Then stop the conversation, do what you need to do, and then come back because they'll be waiting for you. And then the final thing, I said hands off. So if you think hands off, lots of people in the pandemic, they've been growing their pandemic beard. It's down to their knees now. They're doing this all day long and they're touching their faces and doing that. Or they've got a pen and they're chewing their pen and thinking like that. Or they've got a mug, okay? So try and keep your hands off around your face. And that way you've got the best opportunity, not only for the sound to travel, so it's easier to see, easier to hear, but also if you're lip reading, it's easier to lip read as well. So those are the three things. Tell them, ask them how they best to communicate, hands off and face on. All right.
Amazing. I love how practical these are and very catchy, easy to remember. Hands off.
Yes.
Hands
Yes.
off.
Sit on your hands.
Sit on your hands. I have to say my lockdown beard is coming along quite nice now. What do you think?
I don't want to say anything. So.
Oh, brilliant. Well, thank you so much, Simon. So as I said, this is the end of the formal part. So I'll just be sharing just final thoughts with those watching the recording. So thank you so much. If you are watching the recording, really appreciate it. You can join us live to get full access to the entire session. Next time we have 3 episodes coming up. The next one is a partnership with Hong Kong, actually. So that's why it's on a Friday morning UK time to allow for the time difference. And it's going to be about who am I, identity and intersectionality with a panel of 3 speakers. Then we've got a very special dialogue, breaking the stigma, borderline awareness, and I'll be joined by my therapist, Marta. Very excited about that. We have on Thursday, 30th of June, then we're going to have a question around where's the diversity and inclusion, as 80% of people working in diversity and inclusion are white female. So this is going to be a very interesting conversation, I think, as well. If you're dying to stay in touch all the time, you can also follow us on Instagram and Facebook, and that's at @BBonBorders. And you can subscribe to the newsletter by heading to my website, www.bbonborders.com. And if you want to rewatch any of the episodes previously, we've had already 3 episodes prior to this one around the language of inclusion, LGBT stories, and gender equality. You can do that on the YouTube channel. So thank you so much for those who are watching the recording, and I will stop it now.